Canada and how some areas are going back on lockdown.
Sadly.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of lockdown still happening in I think mainly Ontario and Quebec right now. So it's I think we're just kind of used to it at this point.
You're right there.
It is true.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I apologize. This is Victor. I was trying to get my camera all set up here. It looks like I made an issue, so bear with me here as I kind of get myself set up.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for letting us know. Okay.
We're trying to break some records here to see the most attendees on a virtual think tank. So I think we're getting there.
We're getting there. Yeah.
We are.
Let's see who else in video. Hey, Carla or Carlos and Sheila and Paulette, it looks like. Oh, it looks like Paulette's actually working from the office, not home today.
Hi, everybody.
That tells me you might be in healthcare.
That's correct.
Oh.
I don't get much work from home days.
Nice.
Paulette,
Well,
I'm in
Jose.
healthcare also, and I'm in the office. So I do hybrid, but sometimes it's just easier to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's hard to do my job from home.
Imagine.
All right. Christina, how do we look on your end in the waiting room?
Yep, everyone that's in the waiting room has been admitted, and I'll continue to do so after you guys begin, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, I'll begin with some introductions. Well, first off, hello everyone, and welcome to this virtual think tank, Maximize Your Candidate Pipeline: How to Develop the Right Talent Attraction Program. We are so pleased to have you join us. By way of introduction, my name is Monica Churchill, and I'm the program manager for our virtual think tank series, and will be your host for this virtual session. I'm going to be monitoring from the back end. So if anyone has any technical difficulties, please just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to troubleshoot any issues that may arise. I would like to begin with a few housekeeping items before we get started. So first, to ensure interactivity, if you don't mind turning your camera on so we can shuffle through the different pages and see everyone's faces, that would be great. Also, when you are not speaking, if you can try to mute yourself just to minimize any audio feedback that might happen, that would be great as well. Second thing I'd like to mention is that in the top right corner of your screen is that we have different views. We have speaker view and gallery view. Specifically for the session, it might be helpful to click speaker view so that you can just see the person who is talking instead of shuffling between the different pages. In speaker view, you'll be able to enlarge that person who is speaking. Lastly, this session will be recorded. So if you would like to receive a copy of the session recording, you can reach out directly to Morgan O'Malley, who is one of the individuals who is leading this session, or alternatively reach out to Christina Lorenza, who is on this call as well, and we will provide you Morgan's contact details. So without further ado, I'm excited to kick off this session by handing it over to our discussion leaders for the hour, Morgan O'Malley and Jason Yachi from RampUp. Morgan and Jason, I will hand it over to you to take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Monica. It's a pleasure to be here. Just want to thank all of you for taking some time to participate. As Monica mentioned, I'm Morgan O'Malley. I'm one of the co-founders of RampUp with my fellow co-founder Jason Iachi here as well. For those of you who don't have your camera on, we would invite you to turn that on if that's something that you're in a position to be able to do. Our intention for today is to have a really collaborative think tank style discussion. The goal is to be able to incite some conversation and be able to share some nuggets of information with you guys that we found to be successful in building a candidate pipeline, and then also learn from you on what's worked and what hasn't worked, and give you the opportunity to specifically ask us questions so that we can have the group answer as well and share best practices. We really feel like today will be a great melting pot of ideas and different industries and sectors and geographies to be able to come together and say, this is what's worked for us. So thanks everyone in advance for your participation. Jason and I will be calling on you periodically, and if you guys have something great to say, fantastic. If not, feel free to let us know that as well.
And I just want to also piggyback on that. What we found to be the most successful kind of think tanks are ones that are collaborative. And if you look at the last year and a half, it's very rare where you get 30 to 40 VPs or C-suites and HR together in one room. And we look like we have about 40 attendees today. And so this is a good time for you all to pose questions or problems that you're having to see if other HR leaders could also assist. So we encourage you to take advantage of that too, not just listening to what we're sharing, but also understanding what's working and what's not across the board for all of your companies or ecosystems.
Exactly. Can everyone see my screen? Fantastic. Okay. As we mentioned, we are RampUp. A little bit about myself and Jason. Jason and I went to college together at Arizona State University. We were fraternity brothers, best friends. We worked together in a lot of different capacities. And after college, Jason ended up going into the recruiting space. He worked for some of the largest and most successful recruiting agencies in the country, the Robert Halfs and the Moduses of the world, and spent about a decade and a half in that space while I actually got into finance. I was working in personal finance for over 6 years, and then I jumped into venture debt and venture capital space, and we were raising capital for startups. And at that point in time, I was starting to see the use of funds was made, a lot of it was being allocated towards recruiting. And in working with some of these startups, I started to identify a lot of different challenges that they were having in hiring the right folks that they needed for scaling their business. So I reached out to my friend Jason. He and I caught up. We started to ideate on the problems in the industry and started to think about the different ways we could solve them if we were to try to crack that nut. And the two of us quit our jobs and started RampUp about 6 years ago, and we haven't looked back since. Jason, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I just think when it comes to Morgan and I, we've kind of worked with a variety of companies from your venture-backed startups all the way to your health systems with 30,000 employees plus. And what we're trying to do today is kind of bring experiences that work on both ends of the spectrum. It's interesting, some things that we saw in the smaller companies really work well with enterprise companies, vice versa. And so we're excited to share with you today and to ask Bruce specific questions since he seems to be a wildcat and a rival of ours.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll have you guys introduce each of yourselves as we call on you or as you have input for the conversation. When we do that, you guys can feel free to just say your name, your company, where you guys are located, and then dive into whatever your topic is. The agenda for the day is we're going to go through some quick intros. We'll tell you a little bit about RampUp so we can establish some credibility and also provide you with some context as to where we're coming from and how we're qualified to be able to provide some advice. In addition, we'll talk to you guys about building your candidate pipeline. The three main components that we see as the most important parts to building that pipeline are the career site, your employer brand, and your application process. So we'll be talking about each of those in depth. We'll share some case studies with you or some best practices that we've come across, and then we'll save some time at the end for some Q&A. One of the things we also like to highlight is our purpose as a very value-driven company is we are driven by the fact and the belief that every person has the fundamental right to love where they work. We also believe that every company's success is completely determined by its people. And for that reason, recruiting is the most important aspect of building that business. Everything we do as a company is driven by that guiding light, and that's really our North Star in how we built our company. Some of the great things about our organization that we're very proud of is we're the top 25 best places to work 14 years in a row and soon to be 15. We're the #1 best place to work in 2013, judged by Great Places to Work. And the most important one is we were rated the #39 most engaged workforce in the world from 2016 to 2020 through Gallup. And that's across all industries and across all geographies in the world. So something that we're very proud of, and one of the things that we believe attributes to our success. There's a handful of other awards in there, but I'll let you guys review those at another time. One of the things that we've also like to highlight is we made over 22,000 hires as an organization last year. Our average presentation to hire ratio was 4-to-1, so right about a quarter. And the candidates we recruited were over 360,000 different conversations. So we've done a lot of volume across a lot of industries and a lot of different companies. And so we've got a diverse set of skills to bring to the table. What RampUp does as an organization is primarily RPO. Our focus is on recruitment process outsourcing. And to provide a little context on what that means, recruitment process outsourcing can mean everything from full end-to-end recruitment for our clients, where we actually inherit their persona. We take on a title that would fit within their organizational structure. We provide fully dedicated recruiters to that account. And we also give them a LinkedIn that states that they work for the client and all those sorts of things. They report into the org structure, but they're managed by our team onshore, mainly in Jacksonville, Florida, Denver, New Mexico, and a little bit in Arizona and California. We have over 250 recruiters, all of which are fully dedicated to their clients. Outside of end-to-end recruitment, we also do a fully customizable stack where we can step in and help with projects related to mergers and acquisitions or launching of new business units or creating a new organization altogether. And then we also do some custom augmentation where somebody may say, we have a 10-person recruitment team, but we need seasonal help. And so we'll step in during those seasonal periods of time, for example. So that's our primary service offering. Today, what we'd like to chat with you all about is maximizing your candidate pipeline. We want to share with you the insights that we've learned from our experiences across the table and help you to develop the right talent attraction program to identify the relevant talent and create a sustainable candidate pipeline during these competitive times. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
Perfect. So as we mentioned, we wanted to be very collaborative. And so what we want to do before we dig in and share what we see as one of the main problems, we wanted to ask the audience, and I'll carry this to Bruce, as I mentioned earlier to start, is what are some of the most consistent problems you've seen when building candidate pipelines? Maybe you can do pre-COVID and currently in COVID, since I think, those are good topics to address.
So I'm not a wildcat. I paid for tuition there. So I know to say bear down whenever I hear that wonderful ASU tag. And I've got another one at Alabama, so I will say roll tide. I'd say, having been in the recruitment side for over 25 years and using different technologies, I think that every 3 to 5 years we have a different problem that comes up. But I'd say now with the system that I work in a very rural part of Georgia, is not attracting, but finding people interested in our part of the country and bringing people, because we're in healthcare. So I'm not recruiting people to work remote. If I was recruiting people to work remote, they would love our culture. They love what I do because we're a community healthcare system. But it's getting people to come to a rural part of the United States where we're 2.5, 3 hours away from a metropolitan area.
Got it.
So that's my consistent problem in building a candidate pipeline is getting people here, getting people interested in us. We already employ 85% of the nurses in our region. They work for us. So that's my most consistent problem, gentlemen and ladies.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate that. Is there anything you'd like to share from a strategy perspective that maybe has helped you work well? And obviously we'll talk a little bit about some areas we think we can help you, but anything that you've done lately to help gain traction in more of a rural market?
Yeah, I think that going back to old school things, we can't just rely on emails, and teaching the recruiters and my sourcing strategists on my team, you got to pick up the phone. Now, the current generation doesn't like to answer the phone, so then we're going to text people. So it's texting, it's phone calling, it's email, and it's not 3 strikes and you're out because you don't know what's on people's target. And so when you get a name, when you get a list, when you get a referral, you call. And then the creativity behind LinkedIn, it's like you may not have contact information on LinkedIn, but you can see where the person works. Or if we get their name from Indeed.com, or if we get their name and company from a list or something, then you Google the phone number of that hospital and call them. So it's a little bit, it's kind of gone back to picking up the phone and personalizing your approach. So that's outside of all the different things we're throwing at it and being creative and doing grassroots recruitment, but picking up the phone.
Okay, no, that's great. I'll ask one more audience member, and then we'll kind of dig into some of the factors we see. Victor, you happen to be in my screen, if you don't mind. What would you say to this?
So we're also in kind of the healthcare space. We are a plasma-derived medicine company operating in many areas of healthcare. For us, and we use an RPO. It's one of the largest in the world, actually. we've seen almost a 42%, 45% decrease in applicant flow. So it's just, that's the reality. And previous to being in healthcare, I was in the retail space, and all of my colleagues in the retail spaces of HR, they're scratching their heads going, how the heck are we going to do this? Because, we're healthcare pays a little bit more than retail, of course. But yet, we're all facing the same challenges, and they're stepping up to pay premium minimum wages, right? And so my fellow colleague in Georgia, I'm sure we're battling for the same nurses, because I'm hiring nurses for my donation centers, because I need to have medical staff in order for me to be able to collect plasma. That's just the reality. So creativity, and I know you have it on your list there about kind of the speed and agility for you to be able to get them on board, and once you have them on the hook, make sure that they stay on the hook and not ghost you, and then continue down the path of actually sticking with you once you have them. Those are all very relevant subjects that my team, and mind you, I have literally an army of recruiters internally, and of course I have my RPO that I lean on. We're probably more close to 150 people that I have dedicated just for my North America operations. And it's a struggle every single day to be able to get candidates to the door, and at almost 45% decrease in applicant flow. Every one of these communications and connections counts. You talked about creativity. We learned that the hard way. We actually troll through LinkedIn and connect with nurses and medical staff, and through all these different means and methods. And picking up the phone is the best way to do it. We actually utilize for our medical staff, because we can utilize paramedics and EMTs. So we actually look at local fire stations and paramedic companies to be able to recruit directly from them. So it's about creativity. It is about, when I first started in HR more than 25 years ago, you learn that, in these spaces where you have very limited in rural parts of the country where you have to go to guerrilla marketing, guerrilla recruiting tactics. We are back to that. We are back to kind of guerrilla recruiting tactics, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to really bring in the candidate flow that you need to be able to operate in some of these states and in spaces that we're in. So
perfect.
Hopefully that addressed some of the questions, and I'm anxious to hear what my fellow colleagues have to say as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Bruce and Victor, for that. Really appreciate the engagement. Mo, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll kind of jump in and share kind of how we look at it, right? And so when we phrase that question, obviously there's nuances between every company, from rural markets to metropolitan cities to healthcare to tech, et cetera. But we like to sum it up with that first word, relevant talent. What we see across the board, it's not always about getting people in your ecosystem, it's about getting the right people in it. And so what we say is there's three things that you need to focus on, and we kind of call it our 360-degree approach to achieving sustainable pipelines. And we focus on career site being the first one. When you think career site, this is kind of around employee highlights, company perks, and really detailed and informative job descriptions. That last piece, detailed and informative job descriptions, something we'll touch on later. That's some low-hanging fruit that we've seen impact a lot of our clients in highly competitive markets. The next one is employer brand. This one exudes your company across the board. In today's society, there's a lot of noise out there, and today's buyer, Bruce, as you mentioned, the person coming to you today is different than it was 10 years ago, right? And so you need to create a brand that really speaks to your mission, values, and purpose. And this one, you can't underestimate the power of this, because today's candidate or buyer is looking for somebody to find a company that fits who they are and what they believe in. And if you're not focusing on that, they're bouncing right off your site and going to another employer. The other facet is online apply process. I'm sure you guys have all looked at this, but at the end of the day, making it simple, quick, and easy to get them in your funnel without having to go through robust HRIS systems is another thing that we really focus on. And if you look at all three of these things, they create kind of this succinct workflow that allows you to create an end-to-end process. Go to the next slide, Mo. What we did was, obviously it's not every company in here, but we did a blind audit. We technically do kind of comparison to your websites, looking at things within these three approaches. And what you'll notice is that not one company that we show here hit all three of those areas. Every company either did one or maybe two. And so what we like to point this out is that there's room for progression on everybody's front, right? And even on the ones that you have nailed, there's areas to do better. What we also like to say is from this perspective is if you think of today's society, right? It's an on-demand society. When you want a car, you page Uber. When you want food, right? You page Instacart or Uber Eats. And when you want shows, you want it to be on demand and sent to you. And so when you look at your brand, when you look at your application process, your career site, you need to make sure that it's catering toward that fast user who's going to jump off your site if they're not getting what they want. So any quick questions on that as far as those three pillars before we jump into a couple key stats? No? Okay. So kind of back to those three pillars. When you look at it by the numbers, again, to just drive it home, candidates spend less than 60 seconds on your career site before deciding if they want to go forward, right? And that's an important one because if you're not engaging with them, you don't have relevant content, they're bouncing off your site and all of that PPC and marketing traffic that you've leveraged is going out the door. Then when you look at your mobile and your online apply process, 70% of people are actually searching and applying for jobs on their smartphone. That is a wild amount from what it used to be 5 years ago. So if your apply process and your jobs aren't mobile optimized, user friendly, you're losing a lot of candidates. And then another one that's interesting, and most people do this nowadays, but your HTTPS, if your URL is not secure, you actually could be losing out on 50% of your Google traffic. And we all know how important Google is from a search perspective. So those are just some numbers to bring home the fact of why it's important to really key on those three pillars to make sure that you're not missing out on relevant talent.
Yeah, and I think it's important just to highlight one of the things, 70% of people are actually out there using their smartphones or their mobile devices to be able to apply to jobs. But 65% of the total that is searching will leave your site if you're not mobile optimized. And so oftentimes in this, impulsive society that we live in, where you have short amount of time to gather attraction and convert a candidate, we need to make sure we're taking advantage of those opportunities. And so I think it can be highlighted there that is a very important piece to the overall process. As we jump into the next phase, the career site, 75% of job seekers are more likely to apply to a job if an employer appears to have an actively managed brand. And so that means showing up on your social media or showing up on any of the different outlets that you use to put information into the world, and being able to see that it was posted recently and that it's up to date on current events and those sorts of things. One of the questions I have here, just to kind of get some engagement from you all, is what are the most engaging pieces of content that you've used in your recruiting efforts? And rather than just pick on someone, is there anyone that has a good example that they'd like to share with us?
French, Canada.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I have the same type of challenges as Bruce and Victor. What we've noticed, people are more looking for quality of life today. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been spending time on, trying to sell the quality of life around where we are rather than the salary per se.
Very good point.
We are in the process of working on a marketing campaign that will have videos showing where we are, the cost of living here versus other big metropolitan cities around us. We're trying to attract young families with small children because they're looking for a less expensive household and less expensive everything when they have. So that's what we're using right now in our recruiting efforts, is trying to sell the.
That's a really good point. And a question I would have just to follow up on that is there a certain outlet that you're using? Is it social media, or is there a careers page that you're actually posting content to talk about the increasing quality of life?
Well, unfortunately, our company does not believe in a career site. I don't get it. They will not allow us to use our LinkedIn page to post for jobs. So we have to be creative on our own, basically. I'm a division of a big multinational in the US. So we're using that in job fairs right now. We're attending all the possible job fairs that we can see online. We use it on our posting on Jabilico, which is a very common job site search site up here. We're also sending, when we're looking to people, we're finding email addresses of people that are looking or that are working in the field we're looking for. We'll shoot them a video. Hey, come and join our team. Look at what we got to offer, that kind of stuff. But we really push on everything aside the salary. You know, their salaries are okay. There's nothing to write about. They're okay. But we did notice that the younger candidates today, they want quality of life. They don't want to work 60 hours a week. They want flexibility. They want country living. They want peace. They don't want to be in traffic. So that's what we work our recruitment on.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because I hire engineers and they're so hard. Like the market up here, it's full employment market. Like the shortage in manpower, I've never seen it like this up here. And I've been in HR for 25 years. I've never seen it like that. So we really have to flip or switch and think differently of how we attract and keep those people.
Absolutely.
The hour work week just doesn't do it for them.
Does anyone else have another example that they'd like to share as well, so that before we dive into some of the solutions that we've got?
So, hi, I'm Jennifer Wilson with Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. And we do something very similar. We send candidates videos about Kansas City. We send them the cost analysis to show that it's much cheaper to live in Kansas City than it is to live in the major metropolitan areas on either coast. But one of the more fun things that we've done to kind of just make our recruiting stand out is we used some of our own children in our recruitment efforts. We photographed them with signs that say, hey, come work for us. And our children actually ask the questions on our basic video interviews, so that people are really interacting with who they will be interacting with at our pediatric hospital. And it's been really well received. And I just love the idea, because when you scroll through and you see so many ads that look the same in healthcare, it's usually a clinician standing there with some kind of equipment and they're smiling. And then you scroll one of our ads and you see someone who is one of our patients, and they're very joyful and resilient the way kids are. It really sends a good message.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic example. And thank you for sharing that.
Just one other thing I wanted to add, sorry. One other thing that we noticed that is really, just like Jennifer was saying, that seems to grab people's attention is, what do you do with your employees when they're hired? Like, do you have activities? Do you have a social committee? What kind of parties do you hold? What kind of engagement, team building stuff are you putting in place? They want that. They want to know what you're going to do for me if I come work for you, not just about the pay. It's everything around it that's of interest to them.
Exactly. Yeah. In this evolving market, I think as the millennials entered into the workforce and then began to dominate the workforce, it's become one. And now that Gen Z is entering the workforce, we're seeing it happen more and more often, where the quality of life is definitely something that needs to be highlighted, and building that brand in a unique and engaging and authentic way is going to be something that's most important for you to attract that talent through the top of the funnel. In addition to that, something that I would say is going to be a common theme throughout is video and audio content in short bite-sized pieces is going to be the most engaging content that we've seen used across the board. And a couple of examples we can share with you are one of our clients, CSX. They're a logistics company in the rail space. They use job overviews that are all video, and they have them specific to each different type of job that they use on their website. In addition to that, they actually talk about the history of the company. In this mission-driven world, people are value-based, right? And so oftentimes you look at, like, I think one of the first BOGOs, buy one, give ones, was Tom's Shoes, and they had wild success because they were giving a pair of shoes to someone in need for every pair of shoes you purchased, and that set off a trend that has run through almost every industry in the world that is now creating these missions for employees to come to work, not only to do great work, but also to make a difference in the world. And so sharing some history about your company, how you were founded, why you were created, what your mission is, and kind of how you've evolved and what the forecast looks like is also a really good way to get people excited about what we're trying to create. When we say how important is your career site is the most important recruiting channel. So I know there were a couple people on here who said they didn't have career sites. I would highly encourage you guys to create those. They should provide a prospective candidate with relevant information about your open positions, your organization, and what it's like to work there. Should also be really clear so that the candidate can search for jobs and easily navigate through those jobs and apply. 64% of candidates consider career sites the most valuable resource when they're searching for new opportunities. So of all the different websites and areas for them to be able to gain information about your company, that is by far and away the most important site for career research. When we review the career site, we look at accessibility, information, and security. How easy is it to access that career page? One of the things that I think is the most low-hanging fruit that you'll be able to take away from this is if your careers are located at the footer of your website, all you have to do to increase your traffic is put that up in the top. If you can relocate it from the footer to the header, you'll end up getting more opportunistic candidates who may be on your site for some other reason than applying. And when they see that careers page, if it's highlighted in the correct way, a lot of times we're seeing candidates convert or at least gauge interest that would otherwise not be showing up on your radar. In addition, the site should be informative, right? The career site should provide the relevant information about the organization, the quality of life, highlight your benefits, compensation, anything else that you can talk about to build that culture. I know for us, we share on Instagram regularly videos of our employees actually talking about why they work for us and what they enjoy about working for us. And then security. If your site is not secure or HTTPS enabled, it won't show up in Google search results. And so a lot of times you're gonna wanna make sure that this is attached to your ATS if you're using one, which most of you are, and make sure that the ATS is HTTPS enabled and also has the proper security settings for the browsers to be able to allow the candidate to see. We did that blind audit that Jason mentioned for each of you, and we will share the results of those after this call. But when we look at it from a blind standpoint, almost everyone in this example was HTTPS enabled for both their career site and their main site. But only about half had their careers listed in their top nav. Again, being the lowest hanging fruit where you guys can start to convert. Most of you, and this is circumstantial, had good content on your careers page. However, very few of you used audio and video to be able to provide some unique, engaging content. Employee testimonials were only used about half the time. And I think employee testimonials are going to be one of the most impactful things that you can highlight, especially if you have good ones, because people really take that to heart. In our Yelp culture, where everybody looks up Yelp before they go to the restaurant to see what the reviews are, it's become a standard where people want to know what they're getting into before they apply. Jay, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. So what we're going to focus on next is really the employer brand perspective. And as we kind of mentioned before, 75% of job seekers research a company's reputation before applying to a job. And that doesn't necessarily mean just researching your website, but it means third-party sites that you have to make sure you're monitoring and maintaining. So if you want to jump to that slide, what we kind of like to phrase the question as is, what are some examples of how you've built or boosted your employer brand? I'm going to jump into this and then we'll kind of field it to the audience to see if they've done anything different than what we're going to propose. So Mo, if you go to the next slide. So kind of ways that we look at employer brand is kind of through three lenses: your ratings and reviews, your social media, and your employee value proposition. When it comes to rating and reviews, this is, as Morgan mentioned, the Yelp perspective. So the Glassdoor, the Indeed reviews. One of the low-hanging fruits that we found with our clients is that while many are responding, they're taking a long time to respond and or aren't being authentic. As we mentioned, today's candidate is looking for a company that speaks to them. So what we recommend is that putting Glassdoor and Indeed at one of the top of your list of things that you want your recruiters to do. And sometimes we, even depending on how large your organization is, assign somebody to make sure that they stay on top of that. And the reason is that people can read into your reviews, and if they don't feel they're authentic, you tend to lose that candidate or the respect of potentially that candidate and or employees. So that one is very important. When it comes to social media, what we like to say is be active, right? And as Jennifer had mentioned, this is a great place to really talk about who you are as a business. What is the culture that you have? What's the lifestyle that you're exuding? And it's a way to resonate them on different channels, which in mediums that they're used to seeing lifestyle approaches. So social media is a big one. And it's one that we're seeing a lot of companies drive a lot of top of funnel traffic from and or garner new excitement. The other one is the employee value proposition. And this one is where we always recommend when we come into a client, we take a step back and we really look at their vision, mission, and purpose. And we make sure that it's articulated in such a way that could resonate with who they are as a company and a brand. A lot of the clients that we talk to will go through rebranding because they realize how important this is, and or they're changing things up to make sure that they are engaging today's audience, right? And so again, the big thing we'll say is be active in your brand. If you allow your brand to go stale, your candidates will go stale also. So a couple examples on the next slide of what we do to be active and help is, as Morgan mentioned, here's an example of using your internal employees to be your reference channel, right? And so you come up with 2 to 3 questions about why they like to work there, what do they like about the culture, and why would they encourage anyone to come join the organization in a quick 15, 30-second clip. And now you can repurpose that content over and over again, and you can save it on their site. Next one, Mo. You'll look here, videos. So University of Chicago Medical is a company that we work with. And one of the things months back, obviously with COVID, was how do they make their internal employees, not just potential employees, feel safe and protected during uncertain time? And so what they did was they created a video to share what they were putting in place and how they were changing the work life to basically support a new or a pandemic, I guess the best way to put it, so that when people joined, they knew they were joining an organization that cared about them and wanted to keep them safe. And they made sure from a retention perspective, their internal employees knew that they were doing whatever it took to make sure that they were happy and safe in their job. When you look at the one to the right, you'll notice a common theme with a lot of the companies that we support and help restructure their career pages. But we like to cluster information so that the audience can identify exactly what they want when they want it. So if they want to know about your awards and accolades, there's a tab that links it directly to them so they don't have to Google it or scroll down a long page. If they want to look at your quality and safety, they can get directly to that. If they want to look at specific jobs, whether that be critical care, whether that be open source technology, whether that be consumer product goods, etc., you're catering and clustering content to that audience so it makes it quick and easy. And then the next one is a lot of our clients, we recommend integrating their blog posts or their social media posts into their websites so that users can, again, get that content that they need to understand more about their work, their culture, the experiences, and who you are as a brand. One thing in here that we didn't add that's come out of some conversations, actually, that is low-hanging fruit also and easy to do is podcasts. So one client of ours had said that they were looking at using their employees instead of videos to do podcasts with them so that they could share it on interviews. They could send it to candidates after their first interview saying, here's an example of why somebody enjoyed working with us and why we think you might as well. And so there's a lot of unique ways to do things, but podcasts are becoming more popular. And that was something we thought was really interesting. So you don't just need to have video, and some people don't like to be filmed. So podcast was another way for you to engage your internal employees and leveraging them as one of your lead referral sources.
Yeah, the way that we've seen that used specifically is when you record a day in the life of an employee for each different job, and then you can actually attach it to the job description. And that way people can hear directly from the horse's mouth, this is somebody who works at the organization in the position that you're looking to apply for, and this is how they feel about it. So it does a lot of things, right? First, it engages your employees and makes them feel valued, right? That their opinion matters and that you want to share that with the world. And then in addition to that, it engages the applicant and gives them the information that they're craving in order to be able to convert. So doing it in short clips that are easily accessible, that are right on your career site, are going to be the most effective for that.
And that process we did in a blind survey has allowed referral programs to be enhanced 10x. And so it's something we found that's really worked, especially whether it's rural markets or competitive landscapes. And even internally for us, 80% of our employees are from referrals. And so we like to use them because they speak to that audience of who we're hiring. Good nurses know other good nurses, good technologists know other good technologists. And so that's a pretty powerful tool that's lightweight and very cost effective. If you go to the next slide.
Just out of curiosity, has anybody employed any similar tactics before, and have they had success with those? Good, so we've got some new information then. So this will be great takeaways for you guys. Jay, jumping into the next one.
Perfect. And this is one that we just wanted to highlight again. We're always looking for easy, non-expensive ways to help yourself grow your brand. And so as we mentioned, replying to review sites is important. So if you look here, more often than not, every blind company here was under at least 4 stars. We recommend 4 stars to even 4.5 is where you want to be. And a lot of that happened to be because of lag times from responses or non-genuine responses. And so we just wanted to highlight that, saying that there is room for everybody to work in. And this is a very cost-effective way to do it. It just takes time. And so that's just something that we wanted to share. And it was pretty consistent. What you do in Indeed is probably what you're doing in Glassdoor. And so you want to make sure you're looking at both channels where you're driving traffic, not just one of them.
And just in human nature, something that's important to point out is that most people don't leave a review naturally unless it's intended to be negative, right? Again, same thing happens on Yelp. You'll see it with a lot of different restaurants. If you have a great experience, a lot of times people aren't going on and putting that on the site. But if you have a bad experience, people want to be heard. They want to let the world know that they had a bad experience because they have vengeance involved. And so the number one thing you can do to help increase your scores is ask your employees to go on and leave a review for you. Encourage them to help build that brand so that you guys can reach your objectives together. And the more that you have on there, the better that brand will evolve over time. And so regularly during quarterly reviews and during monthly all hands meetings and anything that you're engaging with your employees on, make sure that you ask them. When you're hiring someone, ask them how their experience was, and then ask them if they'd be willing to share it so that while it's fresh in their head and they've just gone through the application process, they can now go on and leave that positive information for you as well.
And Lana in the chat brought up a good point. Indeed bought Glassdoor. So at some point there could be an integration, but for today, they still operate and show under 2 separate entities, and they are 2 of the top places where candidates look to review your brand. You can go to the next slide, Mo.
So hand in hand with your employer brand and your career site is your online apply process. We've already talked a lot about how being mobile optimized and making sure that your security and information are all up to speed and working cohesively together. But the online apply process is one of the things that we see botched most often. 60% of job seekers will quit in the middle of filling out an online job application because of the length or complexity. So when they have that knee-jerk reaction to check out your company and go through the online apply process, make it as short as possible so that you're able to gather some of the most important information up front. And then don't be afraid to come back and get the additional information that's needed after you've identified that this is a person who would be a good fit for the role. We have some different examples to share, but I'd love to ask for any of you to share what tactics have you used to increase the candidate conversions in your apply process? Maybe I'll call on somebody. Jill, would you mind giving us some examples?
I'm not sure that I know. I would say that our application process is probably one of our biggest opportunities. we got my HR partner on here, Paul, so he can also help. But you know, as we've started to really drill into where we're losing applicants or not attracting, I would say so far all of the conversation that we've had is we have some applicability in all of that. But this one, our application process and our conversion is lengthy, it's slow, and probably complex. So I'm very interested in this section.
Perfect.
So I wanted to chime in real quick
Sure.
on this, because we went down a journey about a year ago where we cleaned up our career website. We used an outside partner to help us with search engine optimization, cleaning up the website, ensuring that, because we're on the Taleo platform, ensuring that our mobile apply is quick, easy, as well as integration of text and the texting feature within it. Our application's still, you know, it's a little bit longer in 60 seconds or more than 5 clicks, but it's gotten a lot easier. Now, what we're getting is we're getting a higher caliber of candidate. We're getting better candidates. It's just we're still not getting volume. We've done the employee value proposition, but a couple of the things that you said that I think the employee testimonials, the 15 to 20 seconds are fantastic. And we're trying to get more of those. I'm very, very torn on Glassdoor, and they indeed acquired Glassdoor 2 years ago. And Glassdoor still won't work with you. You got to invest with them. You got to spend money to get out of it, outside of having multiple employees, you know, go in and put great ratings for you, or put good reviews on there so it outweighs the negative. Once you start to invest a little bit of money with Glassdoor, you tend to see your bad ratings hidden. And I'm just speaking from experience in my last 3 organizations, it's kind of a tough one with Glassdoor. But indeed, we've seen some things improve. But like you said, Phoenix Children's Hospital, I know that their former leader on the talent side, they did a huge Glassdoor and Indeed campaign, and they asked 100 employees to go in and leave reviews. And they went from a 2.3 to 4 point something in a matter of 3 months.
Yep.
And it helped them out. So simple things like that, but you want it to still be sincere and holistic.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, Bruce.
And Maureen, this is Paul Janata. I'm from Bonsor Mercy Health, and I work with Jill. You know, I would say, you know, a couple things. Well, we use Workday, you know, as our ATS, and I mean, just from the pure like application standpoint, you know, being able to just upload your resume and not have to go through and fill in every box, you know, obviously it makes a difference. I mean, just, you know, if you don't do that, you know, I mean, you get lost after kind of the second page.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things we do, and this is, you know, once your application is in, you know, but we have started for some of our roles with video interviews. So you can actually, so you actually record yourself and answering some questions, and it's preloaded. So it goes to the leader, you know, ready to go. And so they can just actually watch it. You know, the leader can watch it whenever they are available to watch it, rather than trying to schedule an interview. And that's really helped us speed up. And again, this is for, you know, some of those, you know, kind of entry level jobs and, you know, kind of foundational roles more than it is for things like RNs. But that's just been really helpful in speeding up the process and, you know, getting candidates in front of leaders.
Very good to hear. Yeah, anytime you can use drag and drop and allow somebody to enter pre-fill some of that information just by uploading a file, I think it really helps. And so that can dramatically shorten your apply process. One of the things that we look at here is the online apply process should be modern, it should be mobile, and it should be easy, right? So those are the 3 main things you want to look at. If it's not mobile, that's your first issue. If it's not modern, meaning that it's showcasing audio, visual, photos, graphics, incorporating your social media, podcasts, those sorts of things are going to be very important. Definitely focus on those. Mobile optimized, again, the process needs to be something that works well for a phone. And if it's not, you want to make it that way. Application length and content, this is the most important piece. We want to keep it below 25 clicks or 60 seconds. And so we encourage everybody here, once you're finished up and you're looking back at your processes, go through the application process yourself. Act as a candidate who would be showing up on the website find your careers page. Once you find the careers page, navigate to a job that you want to apply for and apply all the way through the process. And notice what you're feeling, right? We encourage you to take notes on how you're feeling and say, wow, this was actually a lot more arduous than I originally had thought. Even though we're asking for information that's really important to the job, maybe we can trim some of that out and collect it at a later stage in the application process. Excuse me, guys. I actually am just getting over COVID, and I like to say that I'm probably one of the last people who will get it. Fun fact, the day I was scheduled to get vaccinated, I actually got diagnosed with COVID. So, Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, no problem. And so obviously the next one is you have to have the right ATS. As you know, programmatic marketing, candidate driving it through the process from inbound all the way to hire, scheduling with managers. The more you can do in your system, the more modern it is, the easier it is for you, and the less you have to work out of spreadsheets. And I would almost guarantee you that there's a percentage of people on this call whose recruiters are still using Google Sheets or Excel docs. So nobody loves their ATS, but the more modern you can make it, the better. One of the things that we'll share quickly, because I know we're running out of time, is again, that low hanging fruit, right? So we saw that in this audit, not one company had Quick Apply enabled on Indeed. What Quick Apply does, it allows you to get your resume in the funnel with a single click. And so with that perspective, it means you're now asking every candidate to go through your process, and likely it's longer than the 25 clicks we'd recommended. The other one was only one, and I can guess we can see here, under 20 clicks, only one company that we saw had that. So needless to say, there are some things that you can do here structurally with your ATS and with job sites that you're working in to gain more top of funnel traffic. Again, it's all about getting people in the door and trying to make it relevant, but you can fine tune those questions as you learn what that audience wants. And so we thought that was kind of eye-opening, especially being that we'd imagine Indeed, the world's largest job board and candidate database, probably being a huge supplier of talent for you all. So that was one thing that we recommend you guys would look at with your team right away. If you want to go to the next slide, Mo. So we'll talk through a couple quick case studies. One of the things that we like to say is, okay, where does the rubber meet the road, right? How does this process help us help our clients? And so when you look at this client, it was a fitness company. The client needed to increase their applicant volumes and decrease their advertising spend, right? That's what almost every HR leader is looking to do today. And so what Morgan had mentioned, and I don't want to overlook it, one of the first things we did was we took 3 to 5 leaders in the recruitment space for our company. We asked them to go through their own job application form and let us know what they liked and didn't like. And what we found was they themselves didn't want to finish it more often than not. And so working through that methodology, then revisiting their career site, their branding process, and their technology and tools, we were able to help this company save $130,000, reduce their ad spend by 68%, increase their candidate flow by 59%. A really way we did that was focusing on the referral or employee testimonials, finding people who had fallen off the application form and didn't go through, and re-leveraging their legacy database. What we also were able to do through leveraging that holistic approach was we were able to reduce their cost per apply by 80% from $15.60 to $3.20. And so if you really focus on your brand from end to end and those methodologies we shared with you, over time, you will start to see the cost savings. And again, it's not just doing it, it's staying consistent and kind of committing to it, right? And so it's a long tail play. The next case study that we'll kind of go through was a large health system, very similar, improve recruitment volumes and candidate quality. And so using, again, the same methodologies, we were able to increase and talk to 50,000 candidates. We achieved 500 plus hires. And what we're really proud of is a 3-to-1 presentation to hire ratio. This was 3 candidates presented to a hiring manager to get a hire, and we reduced their time to fill by 36%. Some of the stuff that we did similarly, Paul, was where could we use video interviews? Where could we have group interviewing versus single interviews? Could we get interview times preset up front? Could we share more about the culture on the front end? Another thing that we like to do is on the first interview, we recommend to every hiring manager, again, I know you guys are in HR, and so sometimes it's hard for the hiring managers to adopt it, but looking at that first interview is you selling your brand as much as you learning about them, right? So it's not all about positioning and what can you do the job, what do you have, but it's a lot about here's who we are as a brand, here's who we are as a culture, here's why I joined the organization. We always find that very powerful when the hiring manager shares why they're here and why they believe in what they're doing. And so doing that along with these digital approaches will really help you reduce time to hire as well as speed up your approach. And again, as Morgan mentioned, this process, we kind of look at it, the Marcus Lemonis, right? People, process, technology, etc. By doing this, it allows us to have success in a variety of industries. And so this isn't catered to just healthcare or high tech or consumer goods. If you double down on these areas, no matter your business or skill set, you will see success. It's just something that will take time. And so with that said, and as we kind of go into time, is there any questions or comments anybody wants to have or share with the group? Even if sharing one thing you took away that you think may be the best benefit to your organization. Anybody?
Sheila here. For me, it's definitely going to be cutting back on the clicks on the application. I went through mine while we were doing this, and I thought our application was 1 page, and I was like, yeah, ours is like 23, I think. And it went to page 2. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it was because and we've had a lot of cleanup. I just started this job in January. So there's a lot of things that we need to be doing differently, but that's why I was brought in to this role. It's a new role here. So, and by the way, I'm not in healthcare. I hope that's okay. But yeah, just, I don't even think they filled out an application for me. So even just, not having consistent processes has been a challenge since January. But so it just made me realize, yeah, I haven't seen our job application. I don't even know what it looks like. So
and you'd be surprised. Many people on here probably feel the same way, right? And once you go through it, you all may have a very similar reaction to Sheila.
I'm smiling because we are very IT driven. And so we have a whole IT department that sits across in Spain. We're actually based in Barcelona. So, but they never have gone through the experience of going to, but they drive all of our IT, including our online platform. So I'm going to take your suggestion. I'm going to have them go through the application process and see what they go through, because I can tell you it's these amount of clicks that we have. Well, first of all, we have to manage the compliance aspect of things, so to be able to get vetted. But certainly it's an exercise I think worth doing, to have other people kind of go through the exercise of going through the application process. So thank you for that.
And I'll share some companies that have to have more compliance. One of the things they've done is they've created kind of a secondary form where it's how do we get them in, initial viable questions. And then once they're validated, they feel they're a good candidate while they're in the system or process, they have them fill out a secondary form. So they've already engaged with them. They already feel good about them. And so you're not asking for a tremendous amount up front, but you're still able to get what you need from an HRS perspective before they potentially get the job. So I throw that out there for a last nugget. And one of the things that we've done is we've done a web audit for everybody who's on the call. And so what we'd like you guys to do is we'll send a follow-up, but we'd like to do one-on-ones with you all if you're interested, and kind of go through what we found specifically for your organization of the approach that we take. Where maybe are you missing? Where could we maybe help you enhance? And this is a free audit. This is just something we do to try to get to know you, but also add value for the time that you had today.
So we'll be in touch. If anybody has specific questions, concerns, or comments that they'd like to send our way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. My email address is right here on the bottom of the screen. It's morgan@rampupinc.com. You can feel free to touch base anytime. We're always happy to be a resource for you. We love collaborating and finding out what's working for you and how we can help, and then being able to reapply that to our clients. So it's a win-win for us, and we look forward to building relationships with any of you or wherever we can.
And I know everyone needs to go. Morgan and I are happy to stay on for a few more minutes if anyone has questions. So if you'd like to stay on and talk to us or talk about any of the other areas, we're happy to stay. Otherwise, you're all welcome to go.
Thanks everyone for your participation. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, and we'll be in contact with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
great.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, I do have a quick question. One of the things that I've been looking at is building a pipeline when we do not have a large pool of qualified candidates out there. So some of the things we've been doing is we're doing more outreach in high schools and middle schools to try to get our local youth interested in healthcare. But do you have any ideas on other strategies anyone else is using? Or, we've worked with local colleges to get some programs developed and put in so that we could get a candidate pool. But it's just been a real challenge with some positions, especially some of our entry-level positions.
Yeah, so I'll make some generic statements. It's hard not knowing exactly what the skill set is, but one of the ways that we look at it is anybody who's currently doing that job today, we look at their resumes and see where were they before, what industries, what companies, and we try to then strategically recruit from those industries or companies. The other one is looking at more robust internship programs where, like you said, you're getting engaged with local schools, whether that's colleges, high schools, etc., and trying to create programs that allow them to get class credit, potential payment, and get them introduced to new potential skill sets or areas, right? And when we talk about internships, one of the big things also is how could this internship not only help them today, but potentially grow their career, right? What is it going to give them exposure to? How is this going to help them in the future? So it's very important, like we talk about the job descriptions, what is it that they're going to do today? Speak to that job. It's very important to why this is going to be an internship and a place they want to spend their time today versus in other companies, right? And so you're really selling on that why healthcare is great, why once you're in healthcare, you can be in it for the rest of your career, right? Why you're helping people, the missions, the value, the purpose. And it's also a great place to potentially launch your own internship page and where you have career testimonials of people in the systems. Your CEO is big, right? For younger people, seeing the executive leadership team show that they're interested in you always helps. And then showing people as you get going who did the part of the program and then they had success and what that allowed them to do, whether it was in healthcare or other places. So those are a few things that I'd recommend.
That is fabulous. I hadn't really thought, because I don't directly recruit, I hadn't thought about pulling some of those resumes and looking to see where we have found those candidates in the past. Just, again, I'm looking at future pipeline and outreach, and those are the places I should be doing some of my outreach. So great suggestions. Well, thank you very much. Today was great. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure.
Is there anybody else who?
Thanks, Jennifer.
Do we have Addie? And Addie, did you have any questions or anything you'd like to chat about? Or Julia?
All right, I think we might be good then.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. That was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Really good
Appreciate
combo.
your help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks again, guys. We'll talk soon.
Just
Yes.
one quick question before you guys sign off, specifically you, Morgan. Did you want me to see? I typically send a post event or a post session email, I should say, to the individuals that participated with the feedback survey. Do you want me to CC you, or do you want me to simply just include your email address for those that wanted to follow up?
You can include the email address, or actually, you can CC me. That's fine. If you just want to CC me on all of them, and then encourage them to just reply, say Morgan O'Malley CC, you can reply directly.
Fantastic. We'll
Perfect.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right.
Have a great
Thanks,
day.
guys. Have a great
Bye.
day.